In this tutorial, we're going to be using the Object Inspection Kit from the Unreal Engine Marketplace. So to start, we're just going to start a new project here. You can add this asset to any project you wish. And to show how to set this up to its full potential, we're going to use a blank template. All of these defaults are fine. I'll go ahead and call this tutorial. And there we go. Give that a second to create. Alright, next up we're going to head over to the Epic Games Marketplace, where you can add the Object Inspection Kit into any project that you wish. We're going to go down to our tutorial and add that to our project. Now that the kit has been successfully installed, we can go ahead and take a look at what is actually inside. So first, let's go ahead and open the example map. And if we try to play it right now, there will most likely be an issue if you're starting a new project where we can't look and we can't move around. So the reason for that is because no inputs have been set up. Our character is here, but no inputs are ready. So if we go ahead and edit this character blueprint here, you can see that there are some warnings, and this is because these inputs here have not been set up. So to do this, all we need to do is go into our project settings, go down to engine input, and we're going to add a couple of axis mappings. So first we're going to add a move forward, I believe it's one word, move forward input. Is it one word? It is one word. Alright. And that's going to be both the W key and the S key. These are whatever your keys or gamepad inputs for moving forward and backward are. Now the backwards will be a -1 input. Then we're going to move on to our next one, which is going to be move right, I believe. Yep, move right. And this will be D and A. Now once again, you can add any gamepad inputs you wish here. This is all based on your game. Once again, this left input will be a -1. Then we have our look inputs. So I have turn and look up. I believe that's the default for all projects, but I'm not 100% sure. But for this asset, we need turn and look up. Once again, these can be replaced with any input you wish. So let's go ahead and add the turn. And this will be mouse X, I believe. And then, yeah, mouse X. And then look up, I believe that's one word, will be mouse Y, and this will be a negative input because we need to flip the default rotation from the input of mouse Y. So there we go. Now if we compile again, oh sorry, one more, the jump input. Now this is an action mapping, so we can go ahead and add an action mapping called jump. This one is not necessary, but I'll add it anyways. So we'll use spacebar there, and that is it. So now if we compile, all errors or warnings should go away, and this is all we will have. So now, if we hit play, we can now look around and move around in the scene with no problem at all. And you'll see if we hover over anything, it gives us a highlight and a little widget at the bottom of the screen that says press E to inspect. So if we press E, it'll bring it to our view, and we can rotate it around and look at it. And these objects over here are the offset pivots, so it looks a little bit weird because the pivot is at the bottom of the object, so if we rotate it around, it looks a little bit off. So you're going to want your object pivots to be something like this, where it's the center. So if you rotate it around, it stays in place, and we're just rotating it around looking at it. No matter which way you look at the object, up is always up. Now that's a key feature in this, that no matter which way it's rotated, up will always be up, no matter what. Now this also works with physics-based objects. So if you pick this up, you can just inspect it, but if it's moving as well, you can just stop it from moving, pick it up, and put it back, and it'll be right back where it was before. And this works with any size object as long as it is not too heavy to carry. This is unreasonably large, and I mean, it doesn't look bad at first, but if you pick it up, you can see it clips through the camera and it highlights again once you're inside of it. So make sure your object is not too large to carry to where it will look something like this in the end. Now another thing you can do with these objects is you can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel, or whatever input you set up. So as you can see, we can zoom in and out of this object. And any object, no matter what the object is, we can zoom in and out. If your object inspection component is not already added to your character, or if you're implementing this into your own character, what you need to do is come up here to add component, object inspection. It should come up as BP object inspection under the custom tab, and I believe you can find that in here by just scrolling down to custom. Yeah, object inspection. And you can add it and it'll add down here. I've just changed the name to object inspection, and then you have all the same information here as you did here. We have this little look information set up, and as you can see, whenever we turn, we're doing a little bit of information before we actually get to the turning process here, and that's because this object inspection is controlled by the regular turning input. Now this can be changed, and I'll show an example of that in a minute. First of all, what it's doing here is we're getting the object inspection's turn and look method. Now it's the current method that's being used whether or not you're controlling the character or inspecting an object. If you're controlling a character, we want to just add the controller yaw input for turning and add the pitch input for looking up. But if we're in inspection control, we want to use the turn for object inspection and the lookup for object inspection based on whatever we are currently doing. Now, the way this can be changed is, say we want to go back to our project settings, go down to our input, and we want to add another axis mapping set. So we're going to add turn object, which will be mouse X, or whatever, it doesn't really matter. And I don't know, look up object, and this will be mouse Y with the negative input. So now if we come into this graph here, we can use the turn object axis event and the look up object axis event. Now we will once again want to get this information here, so we can get our object inspection component here. Whoops. Get object inspection component here at the bottom. Or we could drag this in from over here. Doesn't matter how you get it. Then we need to get turn and look method. And we're going to do a node called switch on enum, which this is an enumeration, which is 2 values here. We're going to switch based on whichever one is currently selected. And we're actually going to do this twice. Once up there and once down here. Now we're going to, we would follow this same setup here. So we get our object inspection component, or once again, drag it in from over here. It does not matter. And here we're going to turn object inspection. And this is based on inspection control. If we are controlling the object through inspection, then we want to get the axis value here, plug that in. And then down here, we can just copy and paste this object inspection component. Look up object inspection based on the inspection control and use our axis value there. And that's it. Now, I'm going to break these 2 connections here so we're not using this information here and we're only using this. As you saw, that worked. And the reason that worked is because no matter what, if we're controlling the character, we're controlling the character. If we're not, we're not. In this case, we would get rid of this information here and this information here, and then connect this up here and this up here. So then this is 2 completely different inputs. So this will be our actual look information, and this over here will be our actual object inspection. Now to prove that this works, here we go. I'm looking around in the scene, and now I grab an object, and I can rotate it around no matter what. There we go. Which is exactly what we wanted it to do. And that's it. That is all you have to do setup-wise. Now when it comes to setting up specific parameters, we can click on our object inspection component over here. And we have a bunch of different parameters over here. There's only 3 showing, but once you drop this down, you get a bunch more information over here. So, to start, our interaction distance. That's the distance that we can interact with any object in the scene. Set to 175 by default because that seems like a fair distance. Now our interaction radius. Let's change this to 50 and see what happens. So if we walk up to an object and we're not looking directly at it, we can still highlight over it. As you can see, we're not looking directly at the object, but it's still highlighting. So if we turn this back down to 5 and we do this again, you have to be much closer to hitting the actual object before it'll highlight. Next up is our object inspection drop down here. Now we have a lot of information in here. Inspection keys, this is whatever key you choose to select the object to inspect. If I want to use left mouse, I can use left mouse. If I want to use E, I can use E. I can use a gamepad input, I can use motion controllers, I can use touch input, whatever I want the key to be. I change it here and it sets it. You can add multiple keys if you want it to be diverse. Inspection descriptor prefix is whatever the object name requires to become an object inspectable. Now if I drag in a cube here and I scale it down to like 0.2 here, and we look at it by default, we're not going to be able to highlight it. But if I add our prefix at the beginning of the name over here in the world outliner or the hierarchy, we can change it OI_cube in the scene, and then come over to it, and now it's an inspectable. Now, you'll most likely get this warning on the first go. Make sure that this object is movable down here in the details panel. As soon as it's movable, we can click on it, and it can move, and we can inspect it and put it back. Everything works just fine. Next up is the start/stop inspecting speed. By default, it's 1. That's about medium speed. If we want it to go really slowly, we can increase this and set it to 5. So now if I come over here and select an object, it'll take a long time to get to its inspection position. And then we can start inspecting it. And then as soon as we put it back, it's going to take a little while to get back to its position. Now that's in seconds. How many seconds does it take to move to its position? So if we want it to take 0.1 second, we select an object, and it's there, and it's back there, back there, back immediately. If we set it to 0, it should just snap in place. There we go. Just snaps in place, snaps back. Our object inspection rotation orientation is how the object should look when it moves to our face or our camera. So rotate object to face camera. That's how it is now. So if we select it, it faces the camera once we start inspecting it. But if we change that to keep object's current orientation, and then we go up to it, it stays the same rotation that it was when we first grabbed it. And then we can rotate it around and it'll go back. Next up is our highlight details. Do we want it to highlight? If we do, well, turn it on. If we don't, you can see it come through. It doesn't highlight, it just shows the object, the thing at the bottom. The prompt display, same thing here. Display it or don't, and then determine what text you want it to say. So if I want it to say something different, does not matter. I can change it there, come in, and it says whatever I set it to say at the bottom. Finally, the zoom settings. Can we zoom? Where should we start zooming? Which this is the default hold location, so make sure you change this based on where you want your objects to be held. How close can the object get to the camera? How far can the object get to the camera? And how fast do you zoom? Then we have the controls here for the keys, zooming in, zooming out, and resetting the zoom, which is another thing you can do once you once you start zooming, so if I inspect this and then I zoom out and then I press middle mouse button, it returns it right back to where it was before. And there you have it. That is the object inspection kit for Unreal Engine.